connecting. There we go. Well, a warm welcome to our two very determined Toastmaster gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. So this session this afternoon is obviously we're still in the speech contest workshops for District 74. And this session this afternoon is specifically about the judges' ballot for the international prepared speech contest. So to have a look at that judges' ballot and to try and have a discussion around what is the norm, what is the standard, what are we expecting, where, what part of that ballot is confusing, both for judges, for role players, and for contestants, so that we all have the same understanding of that form. I'd like to just bring you up to speed very quickly. I sent an email through to International asking permission for us to use Ballot, your final decisions, to be able for the judges to submit those via a form, an online form. And I did get a reply back to say, unfortunately not. So in order for all contests to have exactly the same paperwork, in order to maintain a standard, all ballots that are submitted by judges must be on the official Toastmasters form. We have received, and I will now share my screen, we have received on the website from Toastmasters International, underneath their speech contests section on their website, we have a whole section on online speech contests, which is what our official contests, the format that our official contests will be held in going forward. So your club contests can either be in person, hybrid, or online. However, area, division, and district will all be held exclusively online this year for this contest season. This was decided at the district executive meeting that was held 2 weeks ago by a vote. The motion was passed. So
is that now about District 74 specifically? So each district decides for itself, in other words?
Correct, 100%.
Cool.
So on the website, on the international website, we have best practices for online contests. And if you download that PDF, inside here, you will notice that they have got a whole section about how we will be submitting our ballots. So they do give us a couple of suggestions where they say either it must be emailed, or a photograph must be taken, or the actual form must be attached. But the bigger requirement here is that there must be a signature and it must be visible.
Is the PDF still editable like it has been in the past?
So we are expecting it to be. I have downloaded the PDF here, and if we have a look, yes,
because
it is.
I'm thinking to myself, given our challenges that International doesn't know about, I'm sitting in those challenges now. Apart from the cost, and not everybody who's judging is going to want to sit there printing a whole pile of forms and manually filling them in. They may not be able to print them because they won't have power. So yeah. As long as it's electronic, then okay, that's fine. Then we can email it, or we can take a picture of the screen like we've done in the past and submit it to a tally counter, or however the contest chief judge.
Okay, correct. So according to the best practices for online, it is going to be up to the chief judge to give the instruction on how they want the ballots to be collected.
So but last year's Google Forms is nixed.
It has been. We are not.
What a pity, because that worked so well, actually.
That worked really, really well. I even adjusted the Google form in my request to International to allow for the PDF to be uploaded as a file to confirm that those were the results. But no, it was not accepted. So we shall go forth and do it the way that we have been instructed. So if we, like I said, if we have a look now at the international speech contest, this is for the prepared speeches, and this is the only contest that goes through to the international level. If we have a look now at the judges' guide and ballot, that's what we were looking to discuss for the next half an hour or so. If we just have a look at the judging items and our understanding of the judging items. So Dimitri, I don't know if you, with all of your experience, Rimarai, have you judged in contests? Have you been part of the judging panel?
I've never been a judge.
You've never been a judge. Okay. So is this the first time you're literally seeing this form?
No, I've seen it before.
You've seen the form, just not filled it in.
You've seen it with the eyes of a contestant, is that correct?
Yes, I'm used to being judged.
Okay. Okay.
No, you're used to having your speech judged.
So Dimitri, if you want to start us off and take us through maybe the first 2 or 3, that first section, maybe the content.
Okay, so I can only speak for myself. And what I do is I do not start from the top. I start from the bottom.
And your reason for that, Dimitri?
So if you can scroll down to, okay, not right at the bottom. So I'll start with language and delivery. Keep in mind that now we've got these things electronically, which makes it much nicer in terms of recording everything. In fact, I used to use on our online contests the Excel version of this, so then you don't have to sit there scratching your head adding up numbers, because I know some people do that easily, some people less easily, so that takes that pain out. But the reason is very simple. I look at the weighting of the criteria, and the items higher up carry a far more serious weighting. And it's very easy for me to go back and adjust a score if I've noticed something that's particularly good or particularly bad in terms of language usage, volume, flexibility, all that kind of stuff, which carries less weight. Because obviously you're also paying attention at the content, you're paying attention as much as possible by having all the pictures of everybody on the screen. Usually I use 2 screens when I'm on my laptop, so I can see all of the audience, at least those when we used to have the cameras on. So that's a little bit of a problem now with cameras off. But it's nice to see the response, people's expressions and that sort of thing, because it's part of it. So I put my attention where the weighting is higher. Content is 50, delivery is 30. So I've measured the other stuff, and I can go back and adjust it if it changed dramatically halfway through the speech, or if the ending was particularly good or bad, or whatever the case may be. So that's why I do it backwards. And I only ever put my final scores in at the end of the speech, after I've heard everything and I'm now in a position to react to the content and the idea, and do I think it was effective? Did it move me? Was I bored to tears, or whatever the case may be? Keeping in mind the usual criteria for a speech. And then that gives me the leeway that I might want to fine-tune my numbers. Because I might think, well, in view of the whole speech, the opening actually was too much. So then I'm going to knock a point or 2 off. I can make those kinds of decisions post the fact, which is why I start from the bottom. That's just my own logic. Nobody is obliged to follow it.
Okay, so I think you've hit on an important point here to start us off, is that content covers 50% of the score, delivery is 30%, and the language is only 20%. So it really and truly, the heavy weight is sitting in the content. And if we have a look at the scores here, that 50 is made up of 20% goes to structure, organization and support material. And then 15% each goes to the effectiveness. In other words, was there a purpose? And the value. In other words, was there original thought and an idea? So I agree with you. Those
I scored,
three
yeah.
areas you can't give a final mark to until you've heard the whole presentation.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
also there's a few other things. There's a few other things going on there. You know, I need to have heard everything to see to make the call. You know, was I inspired? Because the international speech is welcome to incorporate humor, and it's almost always incorporating storytelling, obviously, and all the other elements that we know and love. But at the end of the day, was I inspired, and is it going to be a universal audience member that responds to it? So I'm considering that, because my job isn't just to judge today's speech with the eye of a club level speech, for example. Will that speech do something on a wider stage?
So now, Dimitri, is that something that we as judges we can consider when it's actually not on the ballot form? It doesn't say here, does it inspire? It doesn't say international audience. So is that something we can consider?
My job as a judge, I'm not interested in providing an evaluation. And of course, as we know, we're not allowed to speak to anybody whose speech we've seen when we're on the judging circuit. But our job, in my opinion, as a judge, is to pick the best speech on the particular contest that is going to move forward. So it's, in my mind, quite natural that I would consider a speech that motivates you to, I don't know, let's do something silly, learn how to clip your toenails properly, is going to have a smaller audience and impact than a speech on why you should find a trustworthy organization and support a child through their developmental years by paying for their schooling or something. Those are two completely different speeches, and I will see them in a different light without question.
So would that speak then to appropriateness? Is that what you're looking at there then? To the actual speech purpose and the audience?
No, it speaks to interest and reception.
Okay.
How many people are going to be interested? How effective is it? How many people is it going to impact, in other words? Is this person the person who's going to represent the area, the division, the district, and then land up in the international stage with that speech? So I'm obviously considering the whole package deal. And that's just the thing that floats in the back of your mind.
Okay, that's really good feedback. Thank you for sharing that. So I agree with you that it's difficult to do the first portion of the judging sheet. And I also, when I have judged in the past, I have probably given marks down here for delivery and language before I've gone back up to the top. How do you mark your sheet, Dimitri? How do you remember that, you know, they had excellent body language, or their body language was okay, but they used most of their speaking area and their appearance was striking? How do you, because now there's no place to make notes. So how do you now remember that in the 5 to 7 minutes?
Oh, I've done lots of speech evaluations, so I just do. I don't have a better answer, because I very rarely make a note of something specific unless it's check a quote, check the timing, or that sort of thing. I've never had to do that, and I'm relying on my response. My job is to be unbiased, to be neutral, and to be paying attention. So if a particular bit of body language has moved me positively or negatively, it will stand out. You know, I'll take a note of it. So even if I have to go back after 6 speeches because I have to break a tie, I'll be able to remember, speaker A did this, but actually half their hand was a bit off camera, whereas speaker B had a similar gesture, but they kept it all within the frame. So actually, that's a point.
Okay.
You know, you just take this is the type of thing where you just need to do lots of evaluations, and then you need to start doing lots of judging at a club level to get into the change in mindset, because we're not evaluating, we're judging.
Correct. So the way that I do it, because I used to make copious amounts of notes, because exactly I had that evaluator hat on, and I learned the hard way that I was not evaluating but rather judging. So what I've got into the habit of doing is, where it says at the top here, excellent, very good, good, and fair, I now give this a symbol of A for excellent, B for very good, C for good, and D for fair. And then what I do is, when they do something really good, I will come into this block, and let's say that I suddenly notice the body language is excellent. So I need to make an X, because I haven't noticed appearance yet. I haven't made up my mind about appearance yet. So, but I give an A for body language. And while I notice that, I'm going, and they're using their body language, you know, their speaking area really well with that body language. So I'm going to give that an A. And then I carry on listening, and I go, and I give A, B, C's, and D's, depending on, and in the order that the judging form is set. So if I notice now that their voice has excellent flexibility, and they're making use of stage whispers and drawing us in, and at the same time they're shouting and right across the room, then I'm like, wow, excellent, you know, very happy. But there was at times I couldn't hear them, then that was very poor. So then they get a volume, they get a D. And this is just the way I work. And what happens then is, at the end, the overriding one, so let's say that these are now all 3 A's over here, then I know that this person's going to get a 10. And that's, you know, then I put that number in at the end when they give us that minute, that person gets a 10. If they've got an A and a D here, then I need to take the 10 and minus that 3. So I sort of, you know, land up giving them a 7. And I sort of work that way. For me, because I need to pay attention to so many things that I can't remember all the time if I measured that or if I thought about that. So I do.
Okay. I see what you mean. So I inadvertently do something similar, only I just keep it as a running total in my head, and I put down the average.
Okay, so yes, you see, you have a bigger brain than me. I don't have that brain. I need to actually make notes.
Yeah, when we had printed ballots, I used to actually have, like, I've got my own little system of symbols that I would use, and I would just put them there, sort of like around the periphery of where I'm going to put in the number, so I can read them, and because I can always go back and put in another symbol at a slightly later part. And then I'll know when I'm just totting up, I quickly sort it out.
Yeah, 100%. When we were judging in person, I always liked it when there were only five contestants, because then everybody got 2 columns. So then for each, so in this column, I sat with my pen and I would give them ticks or crosses. And then I was able to do the score next to them. So I really liked it when it was, you know, when I had that, I had to use my pen. But now with the electronic version, like you said, it's easier and it's quicker. So yes, now I'm using the A, B, C, and D.
Yeah, you see, so the reason why I just keep a running average in my brain is because that 1 minute, especially on a PDF or paper, is actually not sufficient between contests to reset, do the final score, and get going into the next. And it's very rare, 100%. Especially nowadays with the online contests, that you as the chief judge is going to know if your judges are ready to rock or not, because, well, we're not communicating.
Correct.
So
100%. Dimitri, 100%. So, and that's why I think, especially when you've got a lot of contestants, I just can't remember absolutely everything. So if I don't have enough time, you know, I've at least got symbols that that I will then come back to and go and allocate the points in those 2 minutes, because everybody has to wait for you in those 2 minutes. They can't, they can't tell you to just decide, or they have to wait. So as long as I've got my symbols in there, I can allocate the points and then quickly add it up. But yes, 100%. You, like you say, you've got a lot more experience than me, and you in both evaluating and judging, and a bigger brain. So you do remember stuff better than
I don't know about the bigger brain part, but that's nice. Thank you. Do you allocate full marks to anyone ever?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. It's an exception to the rule. It's a huge, huge exception to the rule. So for me, if you're going to get full marks, it means it was absolutely perfect. So it is an exception to the rule for me. So for example, if they had good ideas, the logic for me flowed, there was an A, B, C, D, or a 2 + 2 = 4 scenario, and it was a very original thought, then chances are they'll get close, very, very close to 50, very, very close. But yes, there have been very few speeches in the past where I have given full marks in any of the lines, because you have to be absolutely perfect for that particular criteria. And I mean, like the voice, maybe that comes up, possibly.
Well, that's a very difficult one, given the online and given the fact that not everybody has good hearing and all this other stuff. That one's a really tough one to get. But now, what is your stance on, and I know there's 2 schools of thought, 2 camps. There's the Keith Bowen PDG DTM camp and the Eric VG camp. For those of you that don't know, those are like our seniors in the organization.
The past district directors.
Yes.
Both DTMs.
Yes, the one school of thought saying, by all means, you're comparing one speaker to another, and the other school of thought saying you're evaluating each speaker standalone, ignoring what came before until the very end, if you have to break a tie or the rest of it. What is your opinion on that?
Well, Dimitri, before I answer that question, I want to go back to the previous question that you asked me. Have you ever given anyone full marks?
No.
Simply put, in all the years, no.
No. It's never. I'm open to it. Maybe I'm too hard a judge. Maybe. It's a debate I'm willing to have, but no, it hasn't happened. I would have to have both my socks blown off to give full marks.
No, I hear what you say.
And I think it should be very difficult, because this is not a linear marking progression. It's easy to get 0 to 3. It's a lot more effort to get to 4 to 6, and it's a heck of a lot more effort to get between a 7 and a 9. So by 10, you're on Everest. You've got to, every single thing must be picture perfect. Not going to happen.
And that for me is this part up here. I feel that maybe some judges don't notice that those 4 groupings of points, they've been categorized, that was fair. And when we say fair, the person meets the criteria. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Good, they're exceeding what is expected of them. Very good, they're overachieving what's expected of them. Excellent, like Dimitri, I agree with Dimitri. That means that they've blown your socks off. Excellent doesn't mean that they have delivered what was expected of them. That's fair. That point range is fair.
That's the minimum that you need to be on the stage.
Correct. I have the same opinion, Dimitri. I have exactly the same opinion. I'm totally there with you. Matt, I see you joined us. Yeah. Welcome.
Hey, Kirsten. Hey, Dimitri. Enjoying the discussion that you guys are having. It's quite interesting.
You've been a contestant before, but not a judge, correct?
No, I've been just contest chair and
Oh.
judge.
And you have been a judge before. I thought you competed. No.
Not yet. Not yet. So it's
I
very
like the yet part.
like just having that judging experience and seeing how you guys doing that. It's quite phenomenal. I feel like I've been underperforming based on what you guys are sharing now.
Well,
especially under the judging criteria, excellent, fair, good, very good. And I'm like, Matt, Matt, what did you do?
It's even beyond that, because before you even start looking at the details, and the more you do speeches and the more you evaluate speeches, the more you get comfortable with the let's call it the Toastmasters way, if I may put it that way. But your very first thing as a judge for all of us is that the right way to put it? Anti-bias training, bias awareness training. I'm not sure what the correct terminology is. Forgive me, but
bias awareness, I'd say, would be the correct term.
It sounds suitably politically correct.
Yes.
That's the first and foremost thing. Understanding human nature as best as you can, because we all have bias. And if you're saying you don't have bias, well, you're a liar. It's that simple, because you're a human being, or at least it looks like you are one. Maybe, maybe. But the point is, you have bias, I have bias, we all have bias. How we train to be aware of our bias, and do we choose to have the ethics to draw the line and say, I've got so much bias in this particular situation that I must step back as a judge. I can't get past it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're lacking in that, because we're lacking in practice. We don't have a dedicated team of judges who've been doing it for years and years and years. There's only a few of us who have a passion for judging. Most people do it because they've been asked.
Yeah. So, Dimitri, back to your previous question where you said, do you judge contestant against contestant, or do you judge each speech individually? I answered your first question first. I think you should answer this question first.
I don't compare contestants during the course of the contest, but I do make little notes at the bottom or the top of myself back in the day when we had paper. So now I'm going to be using a slightly different system because it happens. And I've been in a few of these contests where the contest is so good and the judging path has worked so well that the contestants that you now have to separate from are actually very close to each other. And that's when you start getting into trouble, because I've often had ballots where there was a point difference between my first place and second place, and I had to actually go back and decide, right, well, now I have to choose speaker A and speaker B. Between them, what am I doing? And put a point accordingly. So you do compare, but at the end. I'm
on the exact, Dimitri, I have exactly the same answer as you. So I judge each contestant individually, each contestant's presentation I judge individually, and their presentation I mark. And then at the end, if I do have any marks that are close, if they're exactly the same or one mark separates them, I go back up and I have a look where that one mark was, and was it a valid, was I maybe just a bit lazy at that stage, or, maybe not concentrating, and I go and have a look and I just make sure that that one mark is justified. But yes, I compare my contestants at the end of the contest. I don't compare my contestants during the contest. That I don't do. I agree. I do. Everybody needs to get a mark for their appearance, their body language, their speaking area, not in comparison to everybody else. Because for me, I've always had the attitude that if everybody in the contest is not using the speaking area, and but then I go and give, because of that, everybody now gets an 8. It's not right. You know, their score now is too high for what they have delivered. So for me, it's not the standard of the contest, it's the standard of the contestant. So for me, it's an individual thing. But yes, I agree. I do review at the end.
The biggest bugbear that I've got is with the evaluation contest, which only goes up to district level, where the contestants throw points away because they don't summarize.
Correct. And it's the highest allocation of points, that one criteria.
Yes.
It's phenomenal.
And I'm not, this is probably going to make me look very harsh, but I'm not scared to give a 0.
I will be totally honest, I've also given 0s. So in all 3 contests where there hasn't been, a purpose, where they haven't spoken to a purpose, where it's just been a story or it's just been a sharing of an experience, and I've looked for a purpose and I've listened out for a purpose, and I'm trying to work out what are they trying to tell us, or what is the purpose of this presentation. And yeah, I'm not lying.
Table Topics is also famous for that one, because
table topics and the evaluation contest. I do that. 0 has happened there. Matt, go for it.
Question. I know this is about the judging part of things. I'm curious though, are there any like workshops that help contestants prepare for the actual competitions, like speaking competitions and judging and table topics and evaluations?
So Matt, that's what we've been trying to encourage over the years, is that the contestants actually get involved in workshops like this and judging training. So, you know, our TLI does run training for judges. And to me, it's always been where contestants should really be involved. Contestants should know this form better than the judges know this form. They really should.
The biggest secret that our chief judge has just given away is exactly that. If you're contesting, you've got to put yourself in the mindset that and I don't mean this in a negative way, but you've got to take on the mindset that the judges are the enemy that you have to overcome, and this form is how you overcome them. Knowing this form and what the judges are going to be looking for puts you in the best possible position if you're going for anything beyond club level and you're serious about it. Know this backwards.
100%. And Matt, it's a really, really good question, because a lot of times we're going to have workshops coming up where we're going to talk about the other judging ballots. But in the table topics contest, structure and the structure of your presentation in that 1 to 2 minutes carries a lot of weight. And a lot of contestants forget to do an introduction, a body and a powerful close. And they shouldn't then score high on a judge's ballot if they didn't meet that criteria. And as Dimitri reminded us in the evaluation contest, if you give an evaluation and you don't summarize at the end in your conclusion, it's 15 points that you lose automatically. And I'll be totally honest, I've given a lot of people 0 right there and then. If they go and give their 2 points that they loved, and then their 3 points that they think are for growth, and then they turn around and say, thank you very much. What conclusion? There was 0 conclusion. And it's no not closing paragraph, so it's a 0.
And it's not just that, oh, did they say in conclusion, yes, blah, blah, blah. The conclusion acts as the reminder to the speaker, and it acts as the opportunity for the evaluator to encourage the speaker. So you've missed out on a massively important part of a Toastmasters evaluation. Evaluate the speech, encourage good performance, get them to do it again in another speech next time. you've just thrown it away. So I
Yeah.
put zeros.
100%. I'm the same. I really am the same. Matt, I think that's a very, very valid point, is that if you are going to be a contestant, so for your club, for your area, for your division, if you can encourage your contestants to get involved in the judging training so that they actually understand and know what these judges are looking for, and understand that this ballot form goes all the way through to international. This is the ballot form. So we're all using exactly the same form. So no matter at what level you're competing, you're going to be judged on exactly the same criteria. So you should know this form inside out. You really should.
Can we talk a little bit about protests?
So Dimitri, for this particular workshop, just was focusing on the ballot form. It does come up in my calendar for the rest of our workshops, where we do cover some of the other technicalities. Because yes, I think that deserves some valid attention. So
I think it deserves a lot of attention, because I've been through quite a few, and I've noticed that the contest chairs and the chief judges at the various levels don't know how to handle it.
Correct. No, 100%. So yes, that will be part of the workshops. Matt, you were going to say something? Are you good?
No, I'm good. I'm good. That was valuable. I do like the workshop, instead of having like workshops where they're getting actual evaluations. It's like just attend a judge's workshop and understand what the judges are thinking. I thought that was brilliant. So thank you.
No, pleasure. Awesome. So if we have a look, just to finish off, we've got 2 minutes. If we have a look, as judges, we need to pay attention to every single line. It's not as if these lines were just put in here to fill up an A4 page so that the page looked nice and full. These here, all of these lines add up to a total score at the bottom out of 100. So in other words, each contestant gets literally a percentage. And if you add this all up, getting 0% means that you didn't deliver as expected of what was expected of you. You get 50% as a contestant. If a judge issues 50%, my understanding is the fact that they've met expectations. So they've met the minimum requirement. If you get 100% from a judge, it means that, that judge is laughing and crying and signing up for Greenpeace and, found a cure for cancer all in 5 to 7 minutes. It's a phenomenal blow you out of the water. The United Nations needs to hear that speech sort of scenario. Dimitri, do you agree with me?
Yeah, absolutely. Without question. And there's certain things that almost always come up, and obviously each judge is bringing his or her own reaction and opinion to it. But for example, under speech value, original thought, if you look at that one, it's counting 15% of your mark, but original thought and ideas are very closely linked, and the logic kind of stands by itself. So already half of that 15 is tied together, kind of thing. So, and I've sat through speeches where the idea of the speech was actually really good, but then they used the most cliche, unoriginal things, and they had a break in the logic of the speech. So you have to pay attention to the whole concept of speech value as it's titled, because that's 15% out of your little bucket of 100. It's not insignificant.
And Dimitri, to me, that I agree with you. I pay a lot of attention, like you said earlier on, to the content portion, because it's very difficult for people to have a completely original thought. We have been on the planet for a couple of years now as the human race. So, and everybody's been writing down their ideas and sharing them and passing them through the generations. So it is difficult to find a completely original thought. But what I'd like, and I mark high on, is when people have maybe not a completely original thought, but their ideas and the way they've approached it is now an original approach. Or they've got quite an original, they've got quite a common idea, you know, let's save the planet, recycle, reuse, whatever, but they've got original thoughts on how to do that or how to approach the problem, that type of thing. So I agree with you, the ideas and the original thoughts, I do judge very often, hand in hand. And for me, I am very passionate about the fact that the content and all of these criteria here are so heavily weighted, because why else would the audience listen to your presentation? Why else would somebody sit for 5 to 7 minutes and listen to you speaking? To me, I get and totally understand why the judging form is weighted this way. I really do. We want to hear, exactly like you say, we want to hear original ideas and thoughts. We don't want a collection of, you know, and 500 words of all the cliches that were memes on TikTok for the last 5 years. I mean, then we might as well just get onto TikTok while we're in the room. So yes, I agree with you totally. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen's in the room and this lady, it is now 6 o'clock. So unfortunately, I need to bring this workshop to an end. I thank you sincerely for participating and being here, and to Mr. Satoili, to Matthew, especially Dimitri. Thank you so much, Dimitri, for bringing your valuable experience to the table. What I would like to say is that I think we're going to have to run this again. I think there's a lot to be discussed about this. The fact that Matthew's eyes got bigger and bigger as he joined the group, I think that there's value in having these discussions. So we will definitely arrange more of these sessions. But I will share this recording with the other recordings that we have already have, and we will continue to add to that library. But again, thank you very, very much to all of you for participating this afternoon. And I hope between you, you have a takeaway, a 1 or 2 takeaways to take away with you. Any closing thoughts, Dimitri?
No, I think we've covered good stuff.
Thank you so much.
Probably stop the recording now.
I'm going to stop the recording now.
Thank you guys very much. This